Hey, Jeff Munn, Creating Extraordinary Futures. And this week you may notice a little bit different locale. I'm at my mom's. I'm visiting my 88-year-old mom in eastern Iowa, part of the Quad Cities, if you know that area. It's where I grew up. I didn't grow up here. My mom's in a retirement facility now, but I still notice when I come here that all of this stuff shows up for me, all of these patterns that I thought I had let go of, these patterns of things from childhood, these patterns of how I manage my mom and our relationship. And I wanted to share a couple of them with you just to see if they resonate. Now, I have talked about the fact that I'm an overachiever from way back. I haven't talked a lot about why that is, and it just became abundantly clear in the last couple days how much my childhood was about managing my mom's anxiety, which became my anxiety, which would show up if I didn't feel like my mom was being managed. So, how did that show up, and what's the story there? So I felt like from very early childhood that I wasn't showing up the way that my mom wanted me to, that I wasn't loved for who I was. The example that was held out to me, and I think all of this was unconscious, both certainly on my part for years and even on my mom's part. She thought I was going to be like my dad. My dad was incredibly popular. He was like the class president. He was the homecoming king. He was the high school quarterback. And I was none of those things. I was this kind of pudgy, sweaty, stressed out kid. I was weird. I had these weird influences like Star Wars and science, and I was nerdy, all of this stuff, right? And I learned that wasn't quite okay. And so I had to learn, how do I show up in a way that gets me attention, gets me love, gets me, helps me feel comfortable in the world. And the way that I did that, it was a couple ways. One, I got really good grades. Two, I was always the teacher's pet. I always figured out how to get adults to like me, how to show up in a way that authority figures liked me. And over time, one of the ways that manifested, that way to get adults and authority figures to like you, is to show working really hard. So, like this kind of people pleaser, really smart, hardworking. I did great in school. I did great in the business world because I was showing up exactly how other people wanted me to show up. And there was a cost to that. So the other thing that was going on for me was, while I needed to show up as perfect to manage my own anxiety, I couldn't show up as too perfect because you didn't want to, I grew up in the Midwest. You didn't brag about yourself. You didn't talk about yourself. I heard things like, don't get too big for your britches. So you had to show up in this perfect way, but not too perfect and not in a way that called attention to yourself. And so this this created this psychological nightmare that I'm only really seeing now to navigate through. It was like this impossible challenge of showing up as perfect but not too perfect, as being successful but not too successful, as being showing up as incredibly competent but not taking any attention for yourself. And it wasn't sustainable. So I sustained it for a while, till probably age 50 or so. I mean, it started kind of peeling back. I started understanding I was playing an unwinnable game when I was probably in my 30s, after I'd left the law firm. So I got highest honors in college. I went to I went to, I think it was the number 2 law school in the country, University of Chicago, number 2 the year that I graduated from law school. Of course, it wasn't number 1 because that would have called too much attention to myself to go to a Harvard or a Yale. I didn't even try. I'm just, it's funny, I'm just beginning to see that now. It's like, wow, That's funny how I would put this ceiling on myself. I was on the partner track, but I was beginning to get that, the law firm partners weren't happy. My own learning curve was flattening, so I really wanted to learn and grow. That was part of my strategy, right? If I wasn't growing, there was some kind of problem. So I went to a consulting firm. I became a partner there in 5 years, which was as fast as you could do it. And there were these things all along the way. Every time I showed up in a job, it was well, how do I succeed? How do I, get friendly with the boss? How do I show up as hardworking? And I managed this, and it was exhausting. And every time I showed up too powerfully, I would start to have, panic attacks. One year, I remember I got a big promotion at work, and I immediately broke out in hives for 2 weeks. So, how did I navigate that, and how did I manage the self-medication, the caffeine, the alcohol, the incredible hours, the going into work on Saturday, the long train rides, to kind of fuel this need to show up as okay so that I wouldn't be as anxious, but the anxiety was, just kind of multiplying on itself. And then it hit me that this was not a sustainable strategy, and it took a long time to let go of it a little piece at a time, a little bit here, a little bit there. And now years later, all of these assumptions that I had about work, about hard work, about pleasing, about perfectionism, I thought that they were essential to, I thought that they were the cause of my financial success. And in fact, I am more financially successful now, working about half as much, by the way, as when I left the corporate world. Now I did see some of those things around managing people and connecting with people. I've talked about how I started meditating to kind of manage the anxiety and the panic attacks. And I started connecting with people. I started being calmer. And I saw that those things were very helpful, but I still had this story about work and hard work and hours of work. My father used to say, there's a reason they call it work. When I would see him relaxing at home, he'd be doing paperwork while he had a TV show on. So I had all these messages about work, and I finally began to get that the more that I could actually pull away from work, the more that I could actually give myself space, that I had this intuitive ability to sense what was next. I began to try things without fearing or even caring if they failed. Life became this experiment. I wonder how little I can work, and how much can I make, instead of the more I work, the more I make. It was what if I played with these variables? What if I relied on other people around me? What if I got help when I needed it? What if I did all these things that, to childhood Jeff, self-sustaining, hard-working, pleasing Jeff, these things were anathema. These things were a threat to my own ego and my own capacity to be worthwhile in the world. What if I began to let go of that? And now today, I'm coaching and working with amazing founders and amazing companies. I'm helping those organizations in more ways than ever. I am doing less work as far as hours at work, hours grinding, than I've ever done. I'm enjoying hobbies. I'm playing an instrument for the first time. I'm practicing my saxophone about an hour a day. I am fit. I get out, I run, I lift weights, I do yoga. All of these things, all of this balance, and I thought I had to give something up to get the balance, but actually what's happened is the balance has created more ease, more abundance, more financial security than I've ever had before in my life. Now, if that resonates, reach out to me, get on my email list, look at LinkedIn. When you're ready, let's talk. Let's begin to see where you're getting in your own way, where this is an opportunity for you too. Take care, and I'll see you next time.